Hello everyone, I'm Hugo.
And I'm Jake.
And this is Ask Hugo, numero cinco.
Is this the fifth?
This is the fifth one. No, this is the fifth.
Oh, well, cinco.
So, I'm here yet again to answer your questions. Jake will ask them for you. And, I guess that's basically the premise.
Yeah, that's not very complicated. It's pretty straightforward. There's no nuances at all.
So anyway, question one, go.
My Thousand Faces, straight from Malta, by the way. He's a Malteseman. Asks, what would you consider your area of expertise? We know Jake is a history guy, so what kind of guy are you? Besides a sexy guy, of course. Footnote. And I may put this in the comments right under that. I do not claim to be an expert in history, so don't fucking come to me with that shit.
So what am I, what's my area of expertise?
We'll call it air quotes expertise. What are you good at, basically? What's your thing?
I'd say two things. Not as related to the show, pop culture.
Pop culture? That's a...
More related to the show, being Christian, because I was Christian at one point. My expertise comes from understanding that perspective and being in that system and going to church and being in a Christian school. It's not really an intellectual level of expertise, but it is an experience. I understand that. Outside of that, nothing academic like history.
Incorrect. Your area of expertise is eating things with melted cheese on it.
That's true. I'll count that as well. But outside of that, I wouldn't say I have any expertise. The show has never been about us being experts on anything talking about the Bible. The point is we're just two average guys talking about the Bible, and that's kind of the point. It takes novice-level critical analysis to look at the things in the Bible and say, yeah, that doesn't make sense. We don't have to be experts to do it. Anyone can do it. You can do it. You could do this show probably better than us. In fact, go do that.
Charlie Lama asks, Dear Hugo, what do you think God or gods are? And then they go on to explain, basically, if a deity exists, how would you describe its being?
This is something that's very interesting and very important if you're ever debating a theist. You have to make sure there is a definition of what you are defining as the deity in question.
Yeah.
Are you talking about the Christian God? Are you talking about a deist God? Are you just talking about a deity in general? And if that's the case, when we're talking about a deity in general, I think there are a couple things, minimum, that a deity has to have to be considered a deity and not, in fact, just some super intelligent being, let's say.
Yeah.
This would have to be a being that is somehow supernatural, somehow above the natural world, which I don't think is possible.
I don't know how that works.
Yeah, I'm a naturalist, as is Jake, so I can't even imagine it existing. But for the sake of this, I would consider a deity to be
outside of space-time almost?
Yeah.
Kind of like on another plane of existence.
And I hate saying that kind of thing because it sounds like bullshit. It sounds like you're making something
up. It is
up.
Bullshit, though. I mean, how do you...
It would have to be something that's, as far as we can tell, omnipotent, has ultimate power, can pretty much do whatever the fuck it wants from our perspective. Probably some sort of omniscience, is aware of things that have yet to happen, and for it to be a deity, I'd say it has to have creative powers. It had to create the universe somehow.
Okay.
And probably, I would say almost it has to have always existed, I'll say.
Yeah. Well, so does that mean like something like Ares wouldn't be considered a deity because it didn't create the universe? You know what I mean?
That's fair, I guess.
It gets really gray. I mean, there's so many... Maybe it has to have the ability to affect the world or the universe in some way.
I'd still stand by my definitions because when you're debating people in the modern day about a deity, they're never going to say, well, what about the Greek pantheon?
No, I guess, but... So we're thinking supreme deity, not like
we're thinking about
many deities in a pantheon.
Yeah, we're thinking about like a capital G god, not a god.
Oh, okay. Sentinel Faust asks, question for Hugo. Would you worship a godlike being if it manifested before you and did something crazy that you couldn't really explain through science? And the example he gives is pulling a monkey out of your ass. That's kind of like Bruce Almighty, I think. I'm
going to say no, on technicality, based on how you worded the question. And I'll get to more with what you mean maybe after that. But first I'm going to say, you worded it as to say, if I couldn't explain it by science. There are a lot of things I can't explain by science. I can't explain how a toaster works by science. I'm not a scientist, so I don't think the fact that I personally can't explain something in the moment is any sort of grounds to believe that it's supernatural.
Fair enough.
I'd probably assume that thing was either I'm going crazy, which would be my first assumption, someone's playing a trick on me somehow, or last resort, again, these are getting more and more ridiculous as I go, some sort of alien with, like, advanced, which I think is incredibly unlikely because I don't think there are aliens out there like we would think in sci-fi. I think there's
like that are able to travel here. Yeah.
I don't think that exists. So I don't think that's very likely either. But one of the least likely things is that it's a deity, which has nothing better to do than to fuck with me in an alley somewhere, apparently. Yeah. But even assuming somehow it convinced me it was a deity or the deity, whatever you want to call it, I don't think so, because I don't agree with the whole philosophical concept of worship, even if it is to a deity. I think that's weird.
Would it demand it? Is this God demanding a worship?
Yeah.
Or are you just like...
And it could be a really nice, like, supreme being deity that does nothing but nice things, and it somehow explains away the problem of evil, and I'd say, like, that's cool, you're a really cool guy. Yeah, I think and in the 21st century, the idea of worship to anything really is kind of creepy to me. Yeah. Seems a little caste system-esque.
Tarosh21 asks, Hugo, if you could live anywhere, where would you live and why?
I don't know where in the country, or even if it would be in the US. Honestly, it might be somewhere in Canada or the UK, but what I would want is a city, but not like a New York City. I don't want something crazy packed, but a metropolitan area that has, enough where I could live in a fairly nice apartment, assuming I have the money, and there's stuff around, you know what I mean? Because where we live, there's fucking nothing around us to do.
Not really a lot happening.
Some place where there's lots of restaurants and maybe some bars and just some places to hang out, different stores and stuff. Some place where there's stuff going on, maybe concerts happen occasionally. I don't know.
So it's like the outskirts of Toronto or like Liverpool.
Yes.
Okay.
Maybe Cardiff. I'll move to Cardiff. That's where they shoot Doctor Who.
Wow. That is such a nerd answer. Parker YM asks, question for you guys. Hugo. Question for Hugo, Parker YM. Is it possible that you would give your opinion on other religions? You guys focus on Christianity, but I'm curious about your feelings on other non-Abrahamic religions. And he goes on to suggest like Buddhism, because he is a Buddhist.
I would say my position on other religions are pretty similar to what they are for Christianity, assuming we're talking about supernatural elements. If you're talking about Buddhism strictly as a philosophy, and you just consider, like, teachings of the Buddha or whatever. Yeah, I'm going to say right now I don't know that much about Buddhism.
It's basically just peaceful.
Yeah.
A lot of meditation.
That's fine. If there are supernatural elements to it, which I have heard there are certain kinds of Buddhism where there is some sort of supernatural element, I don't agree with those any more than I do some of the claims of Christianity. Right. But if you're just taking it strictly as a philosophical approach to your life, that's great, that's fine, I can understand that. Honestly, I'd argue the same for Christianity if someone was just like, yeah, I think the teachings of Jesus are cool, but I don't believe any of the supernatural stuff. But let's say we're talking about any other religion, especially Eastern religions, because I know almost nothing about them, and I know very little I openly admit that.
Eastern religions.
I look at them the same way I look at Christianity or any Abrahamic religion. The good parts that I consider good are good, the supernatural stuff is bullshit. Atheist isn't a worldview, but if I were to say something of my worldview, at least part of it involves some modicum of skepticism. Yeah. And that definitely falls into the category of looking at those things with a critical eye.
And I think also because, like we mentioned before, we're naturalists, it's hard to see anything not natural.
Yeah. So nothing wrong with a philosophy as long as it has grounds in the real world. And the reason we focus on Christianity mainly on the show, or almost entirely, honestly, is because we live in the U.S. and that's like
humongous.
That's the biggest religion in this country by far.
Yeah. Angela P. asks, what changes do you foresee in the landscape of American culture should religion be eradicated? Thanks!
This one's a long shot, but I'm considering it a hypothetical, so we'll go with it. Let's say religion really fell out of favor in the next 15 years in the United States for some reason. That'd be crazy. It'd be fucking insane.
50 years, I'd give it to you.
But I'm just 15? Saying, if I were to say 50 years, then it'd be a little stretchier, because we don't know the political landscape then anyway. Let's assume it's pretty similar to today's political landscape, just minus the religion. More left-leaning parties going to be less affected for obvious reasons. The right-wing conservative parties are going to have a huge shift in policies, because once you no longer have a basis to be able to say, we're doing this because the Bible says so, or because God says so, or our religion tells us this. There are so many policies that rest on those sort of things. Abortion laws,
gay
marriage, even, I mean, it sounds weird, but for some reason, the conservative and evangelical Christians have wrapped themselves around and somehow taken the word of the Bible to mean that, don't help the poor, which is completely unbiblical, obviously, but somehow they've connected those two things.
Exactly.
I think even that would somehow change. But I think the right would change a lot. They'd have to. Educational policies would change. I think we'd see less abstinence-only education, which is good because it doesn't work. We'd see better science funding, I would hope. We'd see less trying to push for creationism, because obviously without religion, that has no leg to stand on. Not that it has anyway, but you know what I mean. Someone's holding it up and pretending, see the legs it has to stand on? No, those are your legs. No, it has legs. No, it doesn't. Those are your fucking legs, Ken Ham. Shut up.
Poor Ken Ham.
Yeah. Well,
he's on the streets now.
No, he's not.
He doesn't have any money left.
He just got so much money to do the Noah's Ark thing. Did you fucking see that?
It's like $40 million.
Oh, did you see how much tax breaks they get too? And I mean, I've seen a lot of people be like, you shouldn't give them tax breaks. A lot of amusement parks and stuff in that state get it. So I'd say that's fair. I mean, I guess you could argue maybe it's against separation of church and state, but I'm not that. It's a theme park, technically, and all the other theme parks in the area get it. So okay, fine.
Its theme is biblical. So,
yeah,
I mean,
I'm so excited for that to get up, though, because seriously, Jake and I need to take a road trip to the Creation Museum and the Noah's Ark theme park.
Hopefully, this sounds like a weird plug, but if we can end up saving enough money through Patreon and stuff, we'll be able to go get a camera and go to the Creation Museum and then do the Noah's Ark thing. Mm-hmm. That's something we've actually wanted to do for a while, so hopefully it works out just right around the time Noah's Ark really, really gets going. So.
Yeah.
And the last question for Ask Hugo number 5. Alex Underwood says, I have a legitimate question.
As opposed to...
That's remains to be seen, Alex
good.
Underwood.
The body won't shut that question down, then it's legitimate.
That's a solid joke. Would you guys ever consider making another channel, like for gaming or politics?
This is actually super convenient that you asked this.
That's wild.
We just created another channel, Unpopular Culture. There's a link on your screen and probably in the description.
Look at that logo.
That's going to be our channel for gaming, TV shows, movies, because we've always talked about that kind of stuff on this channel anyway, but really this is obviously more about religion and atheism, so we're moving kind of that stuff. It'll still be here.
No, we're not gonna like get rid of pop culture references, but we're going to expand it.
We're expanding it out to the other channel.
We have so much nerd aura that we need another place to contain it.
So if you want, you can go ahead and subscribe to that there. I don't think by this point we have any videos up there, but we have several recorded and we're working on editing them now.
The inaugural episode will be Face Off.
Yeah. And we're also going to do stuff for TV shows like Goosebumps. The new season of Doctor Who is starting, so we're going to be talking about those episodes as they come out. We're going to be a couple episodes behind for sure, but we'll hopefully in that first Doctor Who episode, for instance, we'll recap our thoughts on the first couple. Yeah. And we'll do some gaming stuff. It'll be fun. So if you're interested in that sort of stuff, go ahead and check that out. If not, that's cool. We get it.
Yeah. So also we're taking requests for games, movies, TV shows that you guys would like to see.
Yeah. So, I think that's it for this episode. If you want, you can all ask questions in the comments and make sure they're not nonsense questions. I'm so sick of getting nonsense questions. They're not going to
get... If you could lick blue, what would it smell like?
Yeah, I'm not going to answer those questions. Yeah, I'm not even going to comment on those questions.
Me neither.
So, ask genuine questions, please. Anyway, until next time, I'm Hugo.
And I'm Jake.
And this has been Ask Hugo number 5.
Are you sure it was number 5?
I'm positive.
Don't ask me fucking questions.